Good evening, y'all. So this is the Hillbilly Think Tank coming at you. No, that's not an oxymoron, or is it? Well, you know, one of the challenging aspects of being a Kentuckian is having folks take us seriously when we take seriously the fact that we are rural and proud of it, when we take seriously the fact that, we love all of Kentucky, whether it's big city, small town, or somewhere in between. But regardless, we've got a great county here and we've got a great state. And in this state, once I left to join the military when I was 18, man, it took me too long to get back because I had to do my over 20 years in the military, retired, did some federal employment time out west, and then decided it was time to come back home. Here in this state, I really realized this is where I can thrive. And this is where I do thrive. So I'm back and proud of that. Tonight, here at about 6:30, because he let me know he's got to go help an elderly neighbor, we're going to have Logan Forsythe on, and he's going to talk about what it was like for him growing up in Western Kentucky. I'm not going to actually tell his whole story, but he's had quite an interesting life. I can't wait for him to tell you about it. He's running for U.S. Senate, try to take Mitch McConnell's seat. And, we've got some great candidates this go round. And we've got our primary coming up, in the primaries, got some great candidates. I've had Vincent Thompson on here, Hardin County native. And, Vincent's got a great vision for Kentucky, for Hardin County, and for all of the United States. And Logan does too. So I think it's time to, compare and contrast both of them. Let's hear what they both have to say. Also today, I took off about an hour early from work because Staff Sergeant Pennington came home today. He flew home to Hardin County. They flew him into the Fort Knox airfield there, and he had military honors performed as he was taken off of that flight. We had an amazing procession, went from Fort Knox all over the county, to be honest with you. They had viewing points along the way. For those who weren't in the procession, we're at Severance Valley Baptist Church, Cecilia Bank, down to Glendale, from where he's from, and then from Glendale back up through Elizabethtown. And, they came through the Elizabethtown old downtown square. Man, folks were out all over this county to pay him the honor that he deserves. So it was just really moving to see that we take care of our own here in Hardin County. And I wish, we all could have seen it. So he's going to be interred next Friday. And they're basically going to have a whole day of celebrating his life before they inter him in the Veteran Cemetery here in Hardin County. So that will be something, again, for, I'm sure this whole county is going to turn out just like they do for the Wreaths Over America when we place the wreaths on all the grave sites out there at the Hardin County and the Kentucky Veteran Cemetery. So, yeah. If you were out there, it was absolutely, they did it right. They honored him correctly and beautifully. So, addition to that, it got me thinking about some of our amazing folks that we've, had here in Hardin County that have served. And, one of the ones that's the most famous was Master Chief Carl Brashear. He was a Navy diver, one of the first African-American Navy divers. They made the movie about him, Men of Honor, that starred Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro. If you haven't seen it, gosh, really need to. Great story of endurance and tenacity and actually, standing up for what you deserve, fighting for it, getting it, and giving everything you've got to your nation and saying thank you. He had a whole life of service. He had a lot of adversity thrown at him. And I think that it's never enough, to say, just to say thanks for guys like him, guys like Sergeant Pennington. And I've got another character from our state, from this region, who actually had a stay here and served here in Elizabethtown for 2 years. I'd like everybody to know about, and I'm going to talk about him here in a second. But first, I think that it's really important to know that, Master Chief Brashear, his whole family has been here for a long time, and they have been a part of this county and making this county the great place it is for a very long time. They were farmers, business owners, and it's a real blessing when we get to basically highlight and showcase folks like that. So we've named in Hardin County our Veterans Center after him, and that's where I plan on, when I get so old that someone needs to wipe my butt. I don't want my kids to have to go through that crap. So I'm actually planning on going out there and spending my twilight years out there. And it'll be an honor for me to die in a place that's named after Master Chief Carl Brashear. So with that, let's just pay him a little bit of honor, since today's, to me, a day to really think about honoring our Hardin County heroes, of which Sergeant Pennington was one, a very big one of those. So let's give a little bit of shout out to Master Chief Brashear, and just give a shout out to some of the folks that really have made this county a beacon of greatness in this whole land. And we're free because of great folks like them. So we'll start off here looking at Master Chief Carl Brashear.
Navy diver is not a fighting man. He is a salvage expert. If it's lost underwater, he finds it. If it's sunk, he brings it up. If it's in the way, he moves it. If he's lucky, he'll die young 200 feet beneath the waves, for that is the closest he will ever get to being a hero. Hell, I don't know why anybody would want to be a Navy diver.
Master Chief Carl Brashear was the first African-American master diver in the United States Navy. Born in 1931 in landlocked Tonyville, Kentucky, Brashear grew up in poverty as the son of a sharecropper. After joining the Navy in 1948, Brashear began the uphill journey of becoming a Navy diver and attended Navy diving and salvage school. He was harassed daily for breaking the color barrier, as one of the first to take part in President Truman's military desegregation plan. Despite the racial barriers and prejudices, Brashear persevered and graduated. As a salvage diver, his first shore duty station was in Quonset Point, Rhode Island. His responsibilities included salvaging ammunition in airplanes and serving as an escort for President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
The American B-52 bomber, which collided with a refueling tanker over the southeast coast of Spain on Monday, was carrying nuclear armament.
In January 1966, in what became known as the Palomares incident, 2 U.S. Air Force aircraft collided during aerial refueling, and a nuclear bomb was lost off the coast of Palomares, Spain. At the time, Brashear was serving on board the USS Hoist when it was dispatched to find and recover the missing bomb. After the Navy spent 2 months searching for the bomb, sonar pinged it in 2,600 feet of water. On board the Hoist, Brashear was supervising the recovery when a mooring line attached to a smaller vessel alongside his ship broke free from its pipe. The pipe came loose, flew across the deck, and struck Brashear, nearly severing his left leg below the knee. Despite the severity of his injury and pending medical discharge, Brashear refused to give up. Choosing to have his mangled leg amputated, he underwent multiple surgeries and intense physical therapy to stay in the Navy.
All the doctors around here reading stuff out of the paper telling me what I can't do. And you know, that really griped me, or talk my jaws, I call it, telling me what I can't do.
In 1970, he became the first amputee to return to full active duty as a diver in the U.S. Navy. Brashear's accomplishment was a significant milestone in the Navy's history, a testament to his unwavering spirit and determination. Brashear was motivated by his beliefs. It's not a sin to get knocked down, it's a sin to stay down. And I ain't going to let nobody steal my dream. After more than 30 years of service, Brashear retired from the Navy in 1979. He was honored with numerous awards and recognition for his bravery and dedication, including the Navy and Marine Corps Medal and the Presidential Unit Citation. His story was portrayed in the movie Men of Honor with Academy Award winner Cuba Gooding Jr. Carl Brashear serves as a reminder of the importance of perseverance, courage, and determination.
All right, y'all. So that's one amazing character from our amazing county. Now, another character that I have found out about over the last few years, and it just absolutely fascinates me, is Colonel Allen Allensworth. So Allen Allensworth was born in Louisville, and he was born actually the son of a slave in Louisville. He was determined from a young age to get an education. He had to fight for it. They did not want him to become educated at that time in Louisville. But after trying to escape numerous times, he finally was able to get out of slavery when the United States cavalry came to Louisville to prevent General Bragg from coming through, and he escaped slavery with them and then volunteered to be a medic with that army as it chased General Bragg and went to the Battle of Perryville and all the way down to Nashville in a year's amount of time. Then when Abraham Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation, Allensworth joined the U.S. Navy. He actually made the rank that I retired as, but during his, I believe it was 3 years in the Navy, in the U.S. Navy. So, yeah, that's just absolutely an amazing story. Well, after the war, he actually joined came back to Louisville, became a preacher and a teacher. He made sure that kids that wanted to learn to read and write and needed to all got to learn to read and write, and the same with adults. And then he was a preacher all over the state. 2 churches in Louisville, they're still standing and still actually operational. He preached in Franklin, Kentucky, was back, I believe, in Louisville, and Baptist Mission said, hey, we've got this church that is about to go under, and we need you to get out there and save it. Well, believe it or not, that church was in downtown Elizabethtown, right across from my church. So it's still there. If you go to the corner of Mulberry Street and my church, the Episcopal Church, is on one corner. Across the other corner, you've got the Shriners Hall. Right next to it, the Shriners own what was originally the first location for the Severns Valley Baptist Church. Once the white parishioners left that for another location, right after the war, the freed slaves who had already been going to church there, but were going, required to be separate from the whites when they did. They bought out that church and made Severns Valley Baptist Church their church. So it was about to fall apart. They were about to, in the 1870s, I believe it was, they were having a lot of problems, and Alan Allensworth was called in to save the church from disbanding. And he used all of his experience in the Navy, his order and discipline that he had developed there and practiced while in the Navy. He used that, put that into effect at the church, and saved it. He was a preacher here in Elizabethtown for 2 years. Then he went back to Franklin to preach, then to Bowling Green for quite a few years. And then one of the Buffalo soldiers came to him at a service one day and said, hey, Reverend Allensworth, the soldiers in the U.S. Army that are white, they have their own chaplains. We don't have a black chaplain in the U.S. Army. So Buffalo soldiers don't have their own chaplain. Why don't you get a commission in the U.S. Army? Well, he had already been the Republican National Convention delegate from Kentucky twice. He had quite a bit of political cachet in the state, because besides preaching and teaching, he was a lecturer and very involved in politics. And he called in his favors from everyone he had developed a relationship with. So both Republicans and Democrats highly respected him and honored him. And they agreed to give him a recommendation to be commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army and as a chaplain. So the U.S. Senate approved it. And at the age of 41, he actually went back into the military, was commissioned as an officer, as a chaplain, and served out west, all over the West, for a full 20 years until he retired. He actually his last duty station was in Helena, Montana at Fort Harrison. And that's actually a place that I worked, because it's now where the VA hospital is there. Fort Harrison is actually still an Army base also, but it's now a reserve base. That base during World War II was where the Canadian forces and U.S. forces started the first special forces at. So it's got a storied history. Alan Allensworth was part of it. He was the chaplain for the Buffalo soldiers that was stationed there at Fort Harrison in Montana. His last duty station, he went out to California, and we'll find here what happened to him. But in addition to that, while he was on active duty and while he was stationed in Utah, the Spanish-American War broke out, and they needed more Buffalo soldiers to join in the U.S. Army. So he was sent back to Kentucky, back to Louisville, to recruit. They wanted him to recruit 2,000 soldiers. He recruited 5,000 soldiers. He went back to Salt Lake City because he was only TDY here to Kentucky. And they're like, hey, you did such a good job. We're going to send you to Knoxville, Tennessee, and you're going to recruit folk, African Americans from Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, all the deep South. And once again, he exceeded their requirements on how many they wanted recruited. So he was a big part of the Spanish-American War. That's an amazing thing. Well, we'll watch a little video here. He actually did some other amazing things. And hopefully one of these days we can get maybe a plaque to honor him in Hardin County, because he was a big part of this county for 2 years. And actually the first Baptist church, which is what Severance Valley's Baptist Church became once the African Americans took it over, it is still in existence. They're not meeting in that white brick church anymore, but they do have another church location in Elizabethtown. So yeah, quite an interesting history. We've got some amazing heroes from here in this county. Let's watch a little clip on his life too. So amazing guy. He actually started a town. I wish it had been here in Kentucky, but they'll talk about it here in a second. We'll find out what happened.
1842. He was a slave, and that was in Kentucky. And he was sold away from his mother because he was learning how to read with Little Master, and he got caught. So the master sold him to another farm in Kentucky where he was learning how to become a horse jockey so they can go like in the Kentucky Derby. He ran away from slavery when he was like 20 and joined the Union Army. And he stayed with them for quite a while. And after the Army, he went and got the education he wanted. He became a chaplain. In fact, he wrote letters to the president to make sure he could become a chaplain for the Black troops. They wanted a chaplain they can share their Black experience with. And he made that plain to the president, and he was appointed. And he served as a chaplain in the Army for years and years. When he retired, he came out here to Los Angeles. He and his family, he had a wife and 2 girls. And when they moved to LA, again, this was the early 1900s. And of course, discrimination was rampant. And he decided with some of his friends to create a Black township in California. They actually bought acreage on the Santa Fe line just north of Bakersfield. And that's where the town was founded, California's Black township, Allensworth. It's called Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park now. But it was an actual town from about 1908 to 1914. I do not know the population of the town at that time, because people were coming and going, and then there was the First World War, and then after the First World War, people really started going to the big cities. Well, when they come to Allensworth, I'm hoping they take away a sense of Black pride. There's a lot of we don't know about our culture. We were never taught. It's not in the history books that we have at schools. And this is a piece of Black history that's right here in our state. And it was a very successful piece of Black history. The Los Angeles Times called it a very successful community. It was, they were self-supporting. They had their own farms, they had their own post office, they had barbershops. People from around the country came to Allensworth just to avoid the discrimination that was taking place in the rest of the country. The legacy of Colonel Allensworth is very important for the current generation. They may not know a lot about Black townships that were developed after the Civil War. After the Civil War, several Black townships, over 40 Black townships, were established throughout the country after the Civil War, because people wanted to have a space of their own. They wanted to be free from discrimination. They wanted to be able to have their own land, have their own church, have their own school, have their own area where they wouldn't constantly be looked at by the man, so to speak. Success stories like Allensworth are important, just as any other success story would be important. Like we talk about Jackie Robinson, we talk about Muhammad Ali. We should talk about Colonel Allen Allensworth. He pushed to get himself to become a chaplain in the U.S. Army. He pushed to make a town happen in the middle of nowhere, and it was successful. And to show that kind of push, that kind of initiative, that kind of strength, I think that's something that I hope can inspire others to do the same. In 1914, they had some difficulties. The water table was low. They couldn't afford to drill any more wells. The Santa Fe line decided they didn't want to stop there anymore. And then the colonel was killed. He was over here in Monrovia just trying to drum up more people to come to the town. And he was hit by a motorcycle and he was killed. That, of course, was not ever really investigated, but the town folded at that time, about 1914. And it was like a ghost town. And in the 1960s, they were about to demolish the whole place. But some of friends of Allensworth and California State Parks decided to make the town a state park. And we'll be celebrating 50 years next year as a state park. I think one of the stories that might be overlooked was how Allen Allensworth was 60 years old when he founded the town. Moves his family across the country to Los Angeles and then decides we need to build a town. And he goes out, he's past 60, but he's going to different churches throughout Los Angeles and San Francisco areas, recruiting people to come live in the town. I mean, this man is still working. And I think that's one thing people don't know about Allen Allensworth. They just think, oh, he's an ex-slave and he came out here and founded a town, but he was a worker. When people come up and visit Allensworth, we want them to spread the word that this town exists. I think it's a story that is worth telling. And people just don't know that the town even exists.
So, y'all, I really hope that more people become aware of this amazing person. So, we got so many amazing heroes from this county. And, we need to not let the memory of people like Staff Sergeant Pennington, Master Chief Carl Bashir, Colonel Allen Allensworth, everyone that's come out of this county and served, we can never let their memory be for naught. Who else knows that such a great Kentucky son went and started a town in California? Sad that it couldn't have been right here in Kentucky. But we got to honor all of our wonderful sons and daughters that serve this nation and build what it makes us great, which is self-sacrifice. Such sacrifice, it can't be found and it can't be bought just anywhere. It's not cheap. So let's make sure that we know that self-sacrifice is the highest form of sacrifice. That's just only a few people will give themselves the way that Staff Sergeant Pennington did. And we don't want any of that sacrifice to ever be wasted and to be not. So, it's a day of honoring those who serve. And like I said, this month always weighs heart. My heart just gets so heavy because it reminds me of my brother who also sacrificed all for this nation. And, I don't want him to ever be forgotten. So what do you guys think? What can we do to honor the vets more? All right. Logan, welcome.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry for the little delay here.
That's all right. I understand you're out there being a great neighbor.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He was a retired federal judge, and anytime he walks with 2 canes. He won't use a walker. He's too proud, so he walks around with 2 canes. And anytime he needs help moving anything of weight, he'll come over here. And I hate to keep him waiting because it takes him a lot of effort to get over to the house. So I walk back with him and I do what I can for him.
Well, that just sounds like the kind of person I understand that you are, since got to hear you speak. I was late to the Hardin County Democrats meeting that night, but I really enjoyed hearing what you have to say, and I'm excited to allow you to do that here. We were just commemorating Staff Sergeant Pennington, who arrived at Fort Knox today. An honor guard, procession, take him from the plane to the hearse, and he traveled all over the county for an hour, so we could all pay him respect. I took an hour off of work from the school that I teach at in Louisville. Was able to get there in time to get downtown to the square and see that honor procession. So we're just talking about this county has actually had quite a few amazing military heroes, like Master Chief Carl Bashir, was the first master diver, black master diver in the Navy, and even did it, after losing a leg. You might have seen the movie with,
Cuba Gooding Jr., I believe.
Yeah, Cuba Gooding Jr. Then I was going over the fact that we actually have an amazing historical figure that everyone's forgotten, Colonel Alan Allensworth, but it's not about them now. It's about you. So I'll let you introduce yourself. And let's, hear your story and what you're going to do for Hardin County, for all of Kentucky, and for the United States.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for having me. And again, I appreciate your patience and your grace for tonight. My name is Logan Forsythe, and I'm running for U.S. Senate. I'm running for Mitch McConnell's seat. I always add that in there because a lot of the times, when I tell people I'm running for Senate, they ask what district here in Kentucky. Well, this is the big one, so it's for the district that is all of Kentucky. And as I tell people when I go out and I meet them, there's a million reasons why I'm running, and all of them are true. It's not that I meet somebody, hear their story, and then try to find a reason to run so that they connect with me. But I'm just an average everyday person. I grew up in extreme poverty, raised by a single mom. We, were homeless at times, and we never had enough food. Utilities were usually cut off. And that was even though she worked 100 hours a week. She worked 2 full-time jobs always, usually had a 3rd part-time job. And that's just the circumstances that are, many places still in Kentucky. Even though that was 30 some odd years ago, it's still a very prevalent story today. So one of the reasons why I'm running for the seat is to ensure that, people who are still in the circumstances that I was raised in, because there's so many throughout Kentucky, have somebody championing like their needs and what will give them the opportunities to do better going forward. Because right now we have the exact opposite. We have people in power who are, they villainize these people, they vilify them, and they say that you're the reason why we're in this terrible financial situation, that people getting a little bit of help is what's bringing us all down. And that's not the case. We've seen study after study that every dollar invested through a safety net program, whether it's Medicaid, which I was on, or food stamps, now we call it SNAP, that yields at a minimum $62 for that local community that money goes to. So it's one of the few times that we earn money as a federal government when we spend money. It pays dividends. And I just want to remind people of that. I want to fight for that. I believe in expanding those programs. I believe that, we should also have to fix the root issues that cause people to need these programs. There's no reason at all that my mother or someone like her should have to work as much and as hard as she did and still be reliant on those programs. She wasn't relying on them because she wasn't trying. She was working as hard as you can. And that's what the idea of the American dream is, right? You work hard, you do the impossible, and you can get ahead. Well, the reality is that's not always the case. And that wasn't the case for her and our family. And, I was able to escape my circumstances, escape poverty. I'm now a workers' rights and a civil rights attorney. I'm very fortunate that not only through those safety net programs that we had growing up, but also through other programs like student loans, I was able to change my life. And yes, I did work hard, but also, Spencer, I got very lucky. I got incredibly lucky that I have the capacity to be able to learn stuff pretty easily and do well on tests. I got lucky that even though we just had Medicaid, I was relatively healthy. I wasn't born with cancer. I didn't get cancer at a young age. I didn't get something that would prevent me from being able to do what I've done. So, yeah, there's the hard work component, but there's a whole lot of luck in my story. And I will never be one of those people that overlooks that fact. I know for a fact that I could only work so hard and achieve so much, that there's other circumstances that you have no control over, and I get that. But nevertheless, I believe that our government and our tax dollars should be used to create as many opportunities for people, no matter where they are in life, to get to where they want to go. Because we can't control the luck. Yeah, we can't control the luck component, but we can control everything else. We can make it a little bit better for people, a little bit easier. I don't think that's a bad thing. And we'll get into more and more. Before being, I guess I was an attorney first, but before I went back to the practice of law, I was a special agent in the United States Secret Service. I started my federal service under President Obama, and I worked that through President Biden. The reason why I went back to the practice of law, I was in a car accident, broke my back and my neck. I have pretty extensive nerve damage. I sometimes walk with a limp, so some people kind of, that throws them off guard when my leg kind of goes numb. But thankfully, I had my law degree. I had my law license. I was able to go back. And I hate politicians. That's a pretty bold statement from that job and just from life in general. I'm shocked still. There's days that I wake up and I look at my schedule and I'm like, I can't believe that all these people, for one, want to hear from me, that these people are supporting me online, and I can't believe I'm doing this. But it's because we have to have someone who's a normal person. We have to have someone who's gone through these experiences. We have to have someone who is motivated simply by making the world better. And I feel like I have to. My son's 14. He's about to be an adult in 4 very short years. My daughter's 10. She's right behind him. And I'm not going to give them a world that's worse off than the one that I got, which already wasn't good. And I don't care what it takes. I know that when I get elected, I have a lot of lofty goals and promises. I'll work myself as hard as my mother did to ensure that I make everyone's lives better, because my kids need that. Your kids need it. Everyone else's kids. I will do this for them. I don't care what it takes. And we'll be able to turn this around. I truly do believe that we can overcome the worst times, and there are better yet to come. And I'm running to help usher that in.
Well, I can relate to your story. That's why I really wanted to have you on here. I grew up, first, I guess 2 or 3 years, I didn't realize it, probably had maybe what you would call a country silver spoon in my mouth. My mom's dad was a country doctor. My mom was a public school teacher. My dad was a Vietnam veteran, I believe, with undiagnosed probably PTSD, because if you ever seen the movie We Were Soldiers Once and Young with Mel Gibson, he was actually in that battle. He never would talk to me about any of it until I joined the military and was heading off to the first Gulf War, and he was afraid I was going to try to be Audie Murphy, John Wayne, and he wanted to tell me basically how horrible it was. And, didn't want me to try to do that. But once my parents divorced, which of course I was too young to even know that was going on, my mom went down a strange rabbit hole from Eastern Kentucky, living a life of Shangri-La. She went off to Texas and married a crazy Texan who was very spiritually and physically, abusive. So I went from never having anything to worry about, someone always around to either read to me or, basically pamper me as the first born of my mom and the oldest, grandson of my mom's, parents' side, to just, I know what the horrors of child abuse are, So you
Yeah.
talk about not having food. One point, my stepdad taking us from Texas, where he had us living at that point, to Montana, and then abandoned us for months on end. And we were getting food out of a dumpster. I remember that, how embarrassing that was. Other times,
Well,
I
I'm
think of
sorry,
living in
man. I'm sorry.
Arkansas, and you're talking about the same thing,
Yeah, but
living,
and with mine, what I tell people, it wasn't easy. It wasn't. You couldn't classify it as good, but and we went hungry, right? But I'm fortunate that I did not experience child abuse like that. That's
yeah,
what. No matter how tired my mom was from working, if someone tried to do anything to us, she would have killed them.
yeah,
And
and
so
that's
she's a great mom, very good protector. She made sure that we were taken care of, and she always built us up. Like our mentally and emotionally, and she was fantastic and perfect at that. So I am sorry. We have a lot of similarities, but there's that one component
yeah.
that
Well, that's
I'm
that's
sorry
the
about, man.
important component. For me, the person that your mom was, that was my mom's parents. For me,
Mhm.
that was the unconditional love, unconditional positive regard. Even though my stepdad took us away from them, for a long, long time, I always knew that safety, point was there if I could ever get back to it. So
Yeah.
and when I finally did, they helped me from 18 years old and on. When I joined the military at that age too, but they helped me get through a lot of that component.
It's good.
But it was then you talk about needing that safety net for folks. As a retired service member and someone who's a 100% disabled vet, combat vet, I rely on the country not forgetting me, not forgetting people like my brother who lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan, and then 4.5 years later, my dad found him hanging in a closet. I count on someone making sure that the VA does not let us down, because that was 2014, right before I retired from the Navy. 2015, my dad is treated for colon cancer, and less than a year later, he has lung cancer, and I have to go home and decide whether to take him off life support or not. At that time I was working for the federal government. And so, I did have to take him off life support and lost him, but that was
I'm
Agent
sorry.
Orange from his experience, in Vietnam.
Mhm.
So I need to know that someone, since we're going, it looks like, into another, could be forever war. I hope it's not, but I need some folks that are going to not let us down, not let the VA
Mhm.
be more decimated than it is right now. They like to break government programs and then claim that they were, that they weren't the ones who broke them, but look how bad that
Well,
program is. Let's get
yeah,
rid of it. Let's
exactly.
make it private. And
They break it and then point at it as an example of it not working, right? And
yeah,
that's the playbook, and that's what we're seeing, and that's why we have to get better people in that'll hold these people accountable. And one of my sisters is a nurse, and she's works at the VA.
oh, which one?
Yeah,
Which VA?
in here in Lexington.
Awesome. Well, that's
Yeah,
when my dad passed away.
yeah. I'm
How
sorry,
long has she
man.
been there?
Oh, I would say maybe like 6 years or so.
Okay.
It's hard right now for her. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Oh
lie.
yeah.
This is not a good
Yeah.
administration to do it under.
No.
Yeah, so I've gotten that perspective. I've talked to a lot of veterans who rely on VA services as an attorney before I even got into this race. When I was helping workers who, I represented a lot of coal miners who ended up with black lung, and they also, before they went down to the mines, they had to go to the VA a lot for their, service specific wounds or injuries, diseases that they had from that too. So I've been fortunate to get this input from a whole lot of people, and I didn't get to serve our country. So before the Secret Service, I was with the Air Force as a civilian. Um, I was one of so me and my siblings, we were the first generation to go to college, and all four of us got to go, which is pretty unheard of given our, circumstances how we were raised.
Absolutely.
But it was still funny because like my mom was there. I was the youngest. I was the last one at the house. I had some siblings that would go a little bit and then like leave. My one sister went all the way through, initially got her degree. So she was always who I looked up to, but she was so much older than me that, we didn't talk and we weren't as close as we could have been. So I was like, I'm going to join the Air Force. That's what I want to do. Cause I didn't really know how college worked. I didn't even know how to apply to college. So I went to Paducah because I grew up in Lyon County. So I went to the big city of Paducah, if you're familiar with that. And they had a recruitment center and it had the 4 branches in there. And I hobbled in. And what's funny is I had what I call Forrest Gump leg braces. I was born with a foot condition, but they were plastic. They weren't metal. And I hobbled in and they like looked at me. They're like, what are you doing? I go, I want to join. And this was not long after 9/11. A few years had passed. They were still accepting almost anybody. And they were like, get out of here. What do you think? We can't use you. And I was like, oh, I have to do something else then. So I went to college, got through that, went to law school. It's funny, my first real job that gave me real insurance was the Department of Defense as an attorney. It took me getting all that before I could actually get something. And I met a couple of Secret Service agents who were doing a pre-planning trip for President Obama. And I've always been like a bigger guy, and I was working out, and they were like, hey, you should join this. And I started going through the process, talking to them, and my feet, just like my service, like when I tried to enter the Air Force, it was going to hold me back. So thankfully my insurance, because I had a job offer and it was the federal employee insurance, I was like, listen, I can do this job, but I got to get my feet completely like reconstructed. And they approved it, which I didn't think they would. So yeah, so I got my feet rebuilt and was able to, get rid of the different devices that I had to wear, and I relearned how to walk essentially. And then I started running, and then I went through the Secret Service Academy.
So I think, that's kind of awesome because we know, in my opinion, Captain Bone Spurs probably could have served, but decided not to, Yeah. And I got a waiver for flat feet from the Louisville MEP station when I, went in. So I just think it's interesting. Did you ever see him limping as he was, as you were guarding him from those bone spurs? No. Okay. All right.
No. I guess he has good inserts. Maybe they're Dr. Scholl's.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what he did, but he figured it out. Yeah. What a joke.
Let's take a short little break, if you mind, just a little one.
Absolutely.
And welcome some of the folks that are here on the show. A few of them are your voters. Let's give a shout out to them. So we'll start off. Durand Ratliff. He's over. He was one of my dad's friends. My dad, he went. Let's see, both of my brothers, younger brothers, went to Morehead State University and graduated. Mm-hmm. And both of my brothers were together in Afghanistan when the one got blown up. That's a whole different story. Mm-hmm. But we really love Morehead State. Our mom, like I said, graduated from Morehead State, was a teacher before she went off the deep end intellectually. And my dad, although he went there and attended there, and I believe they got married while they were in college there, he never did graduate. But I kind of credit that, to the PTSD of combat, not being treated. Yeah. But one of his best friends is on here, right. And he's now become such a person I just love hanging out and talking to. And if you ever make it over to Elliott County, where Keith Whitley's from, and can go to Sandy Hook, look up Durand Ratliff. He's an amazing, awesome Democrat, and you'll have a lot of support out there.
I will. So he's going to pretend he doesn't know who I am, though, when I try to look at him.
We're going to give a shout out to Durand right now. Durand.
Hey, Durand.
Yeah. Send us a little hello. You're still on there if you could. We got Coffee Cats on here. She's saying, please don't forget to like, subscribe, folks. Appreciate that reminder every time, Coffee Cats. We've got someone named Alto Eager, and I don't know if I really know their real name. Let's see. We got Tom on here. Tom is a potential voter for you. He is in the, county that I work in, Jefferson County. So he's saying spring equinox is here. Tom is a great progressive. And yeah, I think, hopefully you can sell your points there. Let's see. We've got Captain Spooner on here saying happy solstice, and happy solstice to everyone. This is, today is, of course, the first day of spring. Now, another question I've got before we go back to having a fun talk. Okay. So I said last night, I gave everyone an opportunity to try to guess what this t-shirt says. And I actually used it in my class. I was wearing one just like it. I said today I would give everybody the shirt off my back if they could tell me what this says. I want to see if you could maybe figure it out. So it says, now I used this in class. I told the kids, hey, write me a paragraph telling me what this says. Your evidence will be, of course, what you see, and life experience is going to make it possibly different for every person. That's the back side of it. Front side has the same thing, just a little bit smaller. Yeah. It took me literally, I guess, 3 days, I think, to figure this out.
Now, does it represent like a pretty common saying?
Currently, it has been pretty common since about, I'm trying to think. I don't want to give it away yet, but January, February, March of last year. And all the way up till now, it's becoming very common. I'll give a few more clues away in a minute, but yeah, everybody tried to guess last night. No one guessed. I said, hey, when Logan's on here, we'll see if he can guess. But I said, I'll give it away to whoever, because that's an extra one, whoever can guess it. Now, I stared at it. I'm like, man, I don't know what this is saying. It comes from OAF Nation, and operator as F. Since you're a future senator, I don't want to say that what that means. But it's Oath Nation. It's a veterans organization that, man, they give some hard hitting news. I think you might like them as a source. I actually feel that they might even be progressive. They're definitely not extreme right wingers at all. I get a lot of good news. They're one of my news sources for making the show. And so I was looking, I'm like, man, is that right wing? Is it left wing? Is it neither? Is it I was just not sure. Tried to look up on the internet, couldn't find it. As I was walking it upstairs to ask my wife before I wore it to school in case it was inappropriate, I'm like, oh, I think I get it. Showed it to her. She's Mexican American. Her mom was an immigrant, and she was born in the United States. So she immediately got it.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of a clue. Okay, so she immediately saw it, got it.
So I would imagine it has something to do with the expansion of ice right now. Everything that's happening. So yeah, it's a fingerprint with that's also a mask with the markings over the eyes.
So the red marking means.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to take a guess.
Let's see if anybody else online is trying. If they didn't, let's see. So you would have gotten your paragraph at least on the way to being correct. It was kind of fun. The kids had a lot of fun with that. Of course, I said, everybody's vision is different because everybody's perspective is different depending on your life. So let's see what we got. Alter ego. You know me, and I'm sure I do. Durand, all right, let's see. But I ain't saying from where. Yeah. We got someone else on here. Donald Wirt, hello all. Donald, are you a Kentucky voter? Just want to know. I think I mentioned to you, Logan, I'm running for magistrate in District 3 here in Hardin County. So yeah, looking for voters too. Who else we got? We got Coffee Cats. There we go. No ice. I don't know if your clue gave it away. So the no eyes.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
No eyes. No ice. Yep.
Yeah. I would wonder
So,
what the symbolism is with the fingerprint making the mask shape there. I wonder
yeah, yeah.
how they
Well,
designed that all.
I think it's just really good art, because if you look
Mhm.
at it, it looks kind of like where the nose bit is. It's, the
Yeah.
masks blur the nose. So yeah.
Yeah. That's
All
nice.
right.
It's cool design.
Yeah, yeah. That's Oath Nation. That's their like monthly. They send out a T-shirt that no one else can see online until maybe later, I think. All right, Coffee Cast. We'll have to see where to mail that to you at. Yeah. Alt Eager says, I think I see a baklava. There you go. That was it. That was the baklava, which threw us off looking like a fingerprint when it was actually probably the wrinkles of it. Tom, the naturalist engineer, and that's another person on here, says, I saw Cobra Commander. There you go. Exactly. And Alt Eager says, also not Kentucky, though I do know a few folks around the state. Awesome. If you could talk to them about who to vote for. All right. So another question I've got. I get my medical care through the VA, like I was saying, but I have a niece that I have had custody of since she's now 14. I got custody of her when she was 5, turned 6, so about 8-9 years.
Yeah.
So she, of course, has had Medicaid for a long time, a little bit, Social Security help or SSI, due to needing that. That's part of the reason I got custody. My sister fell prey to the opioid epidemic, sadly. So she was taken from her, and after being in foster care for about 2 or 3 years, I got custody. Well, crazy enough, my uncle passed away, and he left all the girls in the family a little inheritance, and that made my niece not eligible anymore for the fact that money is sitting there. She can't touch it till she's 18. Now she can't get Medicaid, Medicare, or her monthly payments anymore. So, but my thing is, man, Kentucky was the second best state, I guess, or I don't know how you say. Remember when the Affordable Care Act rolled out? Like California was all in on it, wanted to make sure everybody got more access, more care. And the first Governor Bashir, did a bang up job of making sure Kentucky also went all in and got so many people covered that previously were not covered. And I was a hospital corpsman in my over 20 years in the military. And so I did a lot of primary care work, took care of people in clinics, also took care on the battlefield with the Marines, on ships with the Navy. Medicine was my first love, but teaching is now probably my favorite job I ever had, even though I loved the military and loved the hospital corps. So, but medicine's still, something I'm keenly eager to see something better than what we've got happen. I think the Affordable Care Act, in my opinion, was a great start. But what is your vision? Can we do more to make sure that folks like my niece don't slip through the cracks? Folks, I'm from impoverished Eastern Kentucky originally, although I lived all over the United States growing up. I'd like to see things be better. What is your
we can do more because it's still not a great system. It's better, like you said, but there's still so many issues. And part of the law practice that I did, I helped people get on Social Security disability as well when they needed that. And I've seen so many instances of almost your exact situation where there is a child that is, having to go live with a relative or someone else, and that makes them eligible for Medicaid most of the time here in Kentucky, and they get benefits as well. The problem with the Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security system is we have to have rules. Not saying we don't have rules, right? I get that. There has to be parameters. But if you have a system that is set up with the idea that it could potentially cover every single person, if the circumstances were right, then hard and fast rules will never be 100% effective. there have to be caveats. There has to be circumstances in which a case-by-case situation can be evaluated and a decision made. And for your niece, that's what should have happened. They should have been able to look at the fact, yeah, she got that inheritance, but she can't touch it right now. She is still under your care, under no fault of yours or hers. It's just the circumstances. Thank God she had you. And you and her should not be penalized, because now she is going to have a little bit of a leg up when she turns 18, which is great. We should want that for everybody. But those systems, right, first and foremost, we have to change them to look at individual circumstances more closely and not set such rigid rules, because sometimes when those rules are applied, like your niece's situation, it's the wrong outcome. Clearly, that's not what should be happening. In terms of healthcare, and this is what I tell people. So I'm not strict party with everything. This is what people have to understand. I will admit fault in politicians, where others will try to turn blinders onto them. I, huge Obama fan. In terms of like even just protecting them, they were great, wonderful people. Not only was he very smart, Michelle's smarter than him, which was funny. A lot of people don't know that. So I'm a relatively intelligent person, but when I was around her and would hear her speak, and the way that she would correct him and give him notes after talks, I have never really been intimidated by anybody. I was intimidated by her, and she didn't mean to. It wasn't like her demeanor. She wasn't off-putting. She wasn't mean. She was just so impressive that it was like, oh my goodness, this is, not human what's happening right here. But so I do like them, and I love everything they did. And he did the best with what he could, like with what he was given in terms of the Congress that he was working with. But when he ran, it was the message of hope. That's literally what everyone remembers. And we were going to get, healthcare, health insurance, health industry. We were going to get a lot of reform. And really all we got was some health insurance reform out of that. Now, that was a miracle given who he had to fight against to get that. Most presidents would not have been able to do that. It takes someone special like him. But that's one of those things. It was a great, very first step, but it shouldn't have stopped there. And I understand like a president has to pick and choose their battles, and that was such a huge victory. I'm happy and grateful that it went through, but it's the first of many steps that we have to take to get to where we should be going. Personally, I am a Medicare for all person. I think
all right. That's what I was hoping to hear, because I am.
Yeah. I'm just a long-winded person. Yeah.
No. We need to know what, exactly what you're saying. Do you mind if I give a quick Michelle Obama story?
Oh, please.
Yeah. So my brother, when he lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan, I was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, with Marine Special Operations Command. My youngest brother has a different last name. We had different, dads. So that stepdad I talked about earlier. So two brothers were stationed in the same unit, but Big Red 1, that was their unit they're with, didn't know it. So when Kelly got blown up by the landmine and medevac back to the main base, where our brother, Kelly was a combat medic, our youngest brother, Captain Matthew Kellogg, was at the base, heard that our brother was coming. Now, they'd been through so much at that point. He thought, must just be, or someone told him, tried to, didn't want to tell him how bad it was before he got, before Kelly got there, didn't want Matthew to freak out. So when he flew in, according to Matthew, he looked like a burnt Texas brisket on one half of his body, Matthew was the one who called me in Lejeune. I raced up from Lejeune up to DC to meet him, at Walter Reed. I was terrified because I was when Walter Reed was having the controversies. You were probably there at the time, right? But it actually turned out amazing care. But I was up there for weeks. I would every weekend. I would go back. Any chance I had off, I would go up to DC, spend time with him. My wife and I would, and the kids. Well, just so happened one time when I was there, Michelle Obama was coming through, and I heard she was going to be giving a speech to the Black Caucus, delegation. This is when he was running. I'm like, man, my whole family had been Democrat for years. You couldn't get elected, and my papaw's part of Eastern Kentucky, and it's Morgan County, where he practiced. But Elliott, Morgan, Carter, Wolf, all those around there couldn't get elected if you didn't go through him. So, but Mom had gone off on the Christian nationalist craziness, and she wouldn't call it that, but that's what I call it. But I'm like, man, maybe if she hears Michelle speak, she'll change, get back to remembering what she used to be like. So we went to hear her speak. Like you said, man, she was amazing. So I took my mom up, and I went up and I shook Michelle's hand. I said, man, I really want your husband to win, but I just got to know, is he going to do what needs to be done in Pakistan? Because the soldiers that just blew my brother's, not soldiers, the terrorists that just blew my, brother's leg and hand off, they were coming from Pakistan, sneaking over, killing, blowing people up and sneaking right back over. So you promised me that he will actually do something, because the current president is not. And I said, he's right now, I don't know if he's going to live or die, but he's being treated Walter Reed. I could see a real human, reaction from her, true concern, true empathy. And I just like, man, yeah, love her. Her speech was amazing. I was fired up. I was, I knew I was going to vote, but yeah.
Well, that was with them. They truly were, what I hope that, and I will never compare myself to them, but the foundation, I want to be the same. They were normal people. Yeah. And they were very well educated. They went to Ivy League school. So there is a distinction there amongst many people. I do get that. But it wasn't about getting in and staying in like long term. It was about making positive change. Now, he just happened to rise to the top very quickly in his political career. And then essentially once you're president nowadays, you're typically done. Back in the day, people might be president for a while, then go be a senator or a Supreme Court justice. You don't see that anymore. But there were both of them, man. They were such a good team. They were so solid. They still are. They still do so much work for everybody. Yeah. And that's the thing, man. If you have a good spouse and you're doing something like this, that's what voters need to understand. If you get to know, like I tell everybody, I hope that they have the privilege of meeting Brittany, my wife. She's a school teacher. She has been for 15 years.
Well, God bless her too.
Leaps and bounds.
My favorite career now.
Yeah, leaps and bounds better than me. Like everyone wishes she was running. People who are like, "We like you." I'm like, "Oh, you would love her. Trust me, she's the best." And when you get people and like the Obamas, man, it would be hard to stop them. Anything they set their minds to, and they were literally motivated by doing the right thing. That's rare, and people need to recognize that and support those kind of people, because when we don't, we get the other kind of people, and then we get the situations we're in now. Going back to the healthcare stuff, the ACA, huge, especially the fact that you now can't be denied coverage or care for a pre-existing condition, saved millions of lives. Absolutely monumental thing that when you look back, it's barbaric that we would allow them to do that in the first place. And nowadays, we have people in office that want to do away with that.
Yes.
They want to go back.
What is your assessment of what the Big Ugly Bill has done to Affordable Care Act? Is it basically a moot issue now? They're
trying to make it. Yeah, they're trying to make it. So the big thing, the subsidies, like the fact that you can go on to the website, owned by and operated by the state of Kentucky, and sign up for insurance at a reduced rate. That's because subsidies are there. With just the subsidies gone, most people aren't going to be able to afford that. And that's by design. Kentucky, we're tied for the lowest wages in the country. We still have a minimum wage of $7.25. And a lot of people will come to me and be like, well, not very few people make minimum wage. Well, one, that's not true. A lot of people make minimum wage. And even if people make more than minimum wage, when that is your minimum, when that's your base, when that's where you start, that's what your whole economy and wages are based on. So
the folks that say that,
$7.25 is low, but like they're like, well, no, we're not giving you that. We're giving you $10 an hour. That's almost $3 more than minimum wage. You still can't live on $10 an hour in Kentucky.
No,
And you
well, I mean,
certainly can't
Hardin
buy health
County,
insurance.
you cannot, you know,
No.
especially, you know, we've got, of course, some really rural areas. I live just outside the city limits of Elizabethtown, so I'm, you know, in the
Mhm.
county. But we got some very, very rural areas here. You know, people might try to imagine they can there. I'm sure they cannot. I am from Eastern Kentucky, and you know, we talk about dire poverty, and
Yeah.
725 is not cutting it.
Well,
You
and
know,
I mean,
even there, even
and
there.
we'll go over wages more too, because I don't want to leave the healthcare thing, but like a quick caveat to that. Let's say someone in a rural area, there's not a lot of employment there. They're making $10 an hour. They're making more than minimum wage. Let's say they have young children who are in school. And let's say the school gives them a Chromebook. Most of them do nowadays, right? To make it more
Yep,
accessible.
yep,
Well, the average cost for internet that's going to allow a kid to stream videos for their homework and to do their schoolwork is about $100 a month. At $10 an hour, without taking any deductions or taxes into account, that's 10 hours. That's 25% of one work week for this parent just to be able to ensure that their kids can do their schoolwork. And that's a nightmare. That is such a freaking, and that's just one of how many bills someone has to pay on $10 or less an hour. It's impossible.
yes,
But yeah, going back to healthcare, the ACA cuts with that big beautiful bill. So many people are going to lose it just because they technically will still be able to get it. They just won't be able to afford it, so they can't get it, right? But the other side will tell us, no, you can still sign up, you can still get it, but if it's unattainable, then no, they can't. You've done away with it. So we have to roll that back, and those cuts, the budget bill that they call that big beautiful bill, that really all of that really takes effect in December, right after this coming up election, and that's by design. Right. They knew that they had to get through another election, and then all this stuff is really going to hit people, and it's going to be terrible. And that's why I say we have to get to universal health care, Medicare for all. We have to get a system that it doesn't matter where you work, your insurance isn't tied to that. It doesn't matter, how much money you're bringing in or if you're on a fixed income or not. It's just a service that you have. Also, none of our health industries should be a for-profit thing. We
yeah,
have set ourselves up for these failures. We have to backtrack. We have to do away with it, and we have to. It's a public, trust thing. This should be something operated by the government with the public interest at heart. That way, whenever you get cancer, that like your father, you said he had 2 different types.
yep,
That hopefully you can go get the treatment immediately without having to wait for approvals and all that bull crap. But also, when you get treatment, you're not going to lose everything you worked for. That's such a crazy, crazy system that we have. And what I tell people, though, is even if we flip the House and the Senate, the first 2 years of this next senator's term, we still have a Trump White House, unless he's
yep,
removed, which I would want to try to impeach him and remove him for, you can pick one of the million illegal things that he's done as president this new term. But let's say that we're still fighting. We're still fighting with these people, and it's going to be hard or impossible to get to universal health care immediately. Well, that's why we continue to make these steps. Like I come at this like I come at it when I was a federal agent, like as my job as an attorney. You have the outcome you want, but you have to prepare for every scenario, right? You have to have fallbacks. You have to have a way to eventually get there if getting here is impossible right now. So for healthcare, we roll back all the cuts for the big, beautiful bill. We make sure that people can still afford that, but we also introduce a public option for Medicare. I think it's a great compromise. What that is you as an individual can elect to join Medicare, Medicaid system. Yes, your taxes will go up a little bit. That's how you're going to pay that. But you're also protected if you don't work. Like there's money there to cover everybody if you're not employed. So it's still not based on your employment, but you still also will have the option of private insurance. You can, so it's a great compromise. There's 2 systems. Some people don't like the government. They don't trust them to handle insurance, which is crazy because we see what private insurance is doing. And those people won't have to sign up. They can keep their private insurance. Another thing that we do immediately while we're getting to Medicare for all is we change the pricing structure on how, examinations, treatments, procedures, anything that you go in for, there should not be this arbitrary scale based on geography, based on your insurance status, based on your employment status. All of these things actually determine the cost of the care that you receive. And that's irrelevant. It's absolutely insane that that happens. I learned because I went and started talking to these rural hospitals that were going to shut down and a few that aren't. I talked to the executives that run them, and they educated me because I've never worked in like healthcare management. And they told me how Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements work. And a senator should know this. So I was eager to learn. And your providers, your hospital, your doctors, anytime you go there for anything and you are covered under Medicare, Medicaid, they are reimbursed at a set rate based on the wage tables for the state that you are in. Kentucky has some of the lowest average wages in the country. We've already talked about that some. So our wage tables are very low compared to everyone else. So that means when you go just for a follow-up, for a checkup, for any procedure at all in Kentucky, your provider they earn, like, a really good day for them is about 20 cents per profit per dollar that it costs them. A lot of the times they're lucky to break even in Kentucky. That's what's really hurting our hospitals. Whereas if you were in one of the 5 boroughs of New York City and you went for that same treatment, that same procedure, they make about $250, $300 per dollar in profit because the wages are so much higher for the same thing. So just by us being set up for failure in terms of our wages in this state, that is handicapping us in other ways, such as our rural hospitals, our providers throughout the state. They make less money because we've had leaders in DC and in our state legislature who has not cared enough to ensure that our wages as the citizens who live here are keeping up with the cost of living with inflation. And a lot of people don't understand how all of this works together, and it's like a snowball effect. You know, you have one bad decision that affects something else that makes everything a little worse. It affects something else, makes it worse. And now we have people who can't afford to live in Kentucky, which is one of the cheapest cost of living areas in the nation. It shouldn't be hard for someone to survive here if you're working. And that's what I fight for, man. And so we have to change the system. We have to make the baby steps to get there. From day one, I'll push for Medicare for all, and I won't stop pushing.
All right.
But I'm not going to keep it just at that. I will also push for all of these other changes to make all the systems better until we eventually get there.
Now, let's keep the VA, please.
Absolutely.
It saved my life. I mean, literally, you know, I'm like I said, 100% disabled, but I don't want to go into long stories, but saved my life. It, you know, did good for my dad, you know, until the end. I think they missed the Agent Orange deal. My brother Kelly was getting good care there. My brother Matthew is also 100% disabled. You know, he was the one that was with Kelly. And you know, and it really means a lot to us. You know, there's also a push for us not to get our C&P benefits anymore. That's, you know, disability money and benefits. Oh, if you heard about, the VA was doing everything it could and had told the folks that work and you know, in the section that determines your disability percentage and how much you get, they told them, hey, if a veteran is using medication and they're at 90% disability and they're getting help from the medication, then you need to reduce it. You know?
That's not reducing your disability rate, right? That's easing the symptoms.
Yes. And so, you know, luckily the veterans organizations push back hard, but they've got so many things, and this is all coming from the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. They're trying to get rid of any benefits of those of us who've served. You know, I guess they don't remember Hooverville and, you know, the veterans that marched on DC during the Depression, you know, 500,000 before President Hoover sent in General Marshall and Patton, you know, and Eisenhower to drive out with bayonets, you know, or you send active duty troops in to, you know, take those 500 vets out of DC. That's a black mark on our history.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they're looking to create something else like that if they keep allowing things like Doge, which, you know, ran amok with a bulldozer and destroyed a lot of the capabilities. Yeah, we just got to take care of that. But now I would like, though, you hear what you plan for labor. I'm a union man. You know, my dad was a union member, Durand, who hopefully is still on here. He is, I believe, retired from the pipe fitters union. He was a welder. My dad was his pipe fitter. That's how they worked together. What do you think? What is your stance on what unions, can or cannot do for us? I'm still pissed off that all the folks in Glendale voted for their, that the EV plant that was there to be a union plant. And they, Ford and Blue Oval SK played all kinds of shenanigans with them. Didn't let that go through. I think they knew that they were going to close down. They were only going to be open 3 months. If they had been unionized, they would have had to provide them a UAW job somewhere else, anywhere else. At full pay and benefits. And so,
I'm very pro union. Yeah, very pro union. What I tell people, if unions were allowed to be more prevalent, and it's gotten a little bit better since my childhood, but in the rural parts of the state when I was growing up, there were some jobs that were union jobs. A lot of them weren't. Like my mom, like I said, I go back to her a lot. She had multiple jobs. She really did work 100 hours a week, if not more. And I try not to go crazy with that number, but her and I have talked since I've started this, and she was like, there were many weeks where it was more than that. And I remember.
So you're saying that J.D. Vance's Hillbilly elegy was bullshit when he said that it was a lie that people work 2 or 3 jobs?
Yeah, he's not. He's not from. He's not from rural Kentucky or anywhere. He's a liar. That whole book is a lie.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think though, going back, if any of those jobs, the warehouse jobs, factory jobs, the restaurant jobs that she had, if any of those were union protected and she was able to do it, she would have gotten more for 40 hours a week than she got working 100 hours a week as a non-union worker. She could have had one full-time job. And we wouldn't have been, living a glamorous lifestyle by any means, but it would have been better than what we had. Yes. And that's what unions do. They save lives, they protect lives. And when I go and talk to union halls, I tell them, had they been able to be there and to be present, then growing up, she was a single mom. My dad was not in the picture. I was athletic. I was on academic teams, debate teams, anything I could do, right? I wanted to do everything I could. And she very rarely got to come to those events because she was working. Now, when she came, she was tired and everything, but she showed up to everyone she could. But there were a lot that she couldn't get to. And when I talk to unions, I remind them, you're doing more than just for the worker. You are changing the lives of their families by giving them conditions that allow them to be home more. Like they get to be a part of their kids' lives. So kids throughout Kentucky, when their parents work in a union, especially in the rural parts, they won't feel unloved. And that's a huge part of childhood. Kids need this. Kids need their parents there. They need some sort of figure there to take care of them. They need to know that someone cares for them and loves them and is present. And
as a teacher, I see that daily. I teach in an underserved school in Louisville, and they need it daily. When I taught in Hardin County, it's all that same exact thing. No matter which part of the state you're in.
No, it makes a huge difference in any kid, no matter what their parents, financial status is. They could be rich. If they're like neglected or their parents are never there, it's going to take a toll. And that's one of the many benefits that unions provide people that often goes unseen or untalked about. Just giving somebody a chance to be at home more with their kids is paying dividends in the future for those kids. And that's worth more than I could ever express.
Absolutely.
And my stance though with unions and with any organization or any group, any individual even, when I become the next senator in Kentucky, anytime I have to weigh in on anything, in this case, let's say touching labor, I will talk to the labor union heads here. I will make sure that they have my number and I will, get their blessing. I will understand from them what we need in Kentucky, and that's what I'll fight for. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody I have the answers to everything, because I don't. And anyone who tells you that, whether they're running for office or they're trying to get you to invest in something that they have, if they say, hey, I know everything and you're good, they're lying to you. No one knows. everything, and I'm not going to pretend to. I will go to the experts on this and make sure I talk to them. In terms of immediate action legislation, as a a union member, and I'm sure other people who listen to this who are in unions, there's something called the PRO Act that is in Congress, has been for like 5 years or 6 years now, and it's unable to be passed. It's this overarching bill that makes everything better for unions. It does away with the right to work. It overturns all the different laws and cases that give protections to union busting activities. It fixes almost every issue that unions have. And that's why it can't be passed in its current form. Ideally, we get enough people elected and we can pass it and push it through. For the first 2 years, Trump will veto it. So we would have to have enough to overcome that. But just like Medicare for All, yes, I'll sign on to the PRO Act. I'll push that through. But I'll also break it up into more manageable chunks for the other side, which is silly that we have to spoon feed them progress here, but I'll do that. And I'll get that passed. I don't care if it takes, the one bill for the PRO Act magically goes through, or if it takes 1 million to get all these things pushed through. Yeah, that's what your senator, your representatives should be doing. They should be looking for alternative routes to the same good results. And we just don't have that right now. We have a great bill, but we haven't had anybody try another way to get this stuff through. And to me, that drives me freaking crazy.
Oh, me too. Well, like I say, when I retired from the military, I worked first for a company out of Virginia Beach where I was stationed and retired from, and that took me out to Montana. I was harvesting human tissue. When people died.
Now, that was a job or was that a hobby?
Yeah, definitely wasn't a hobby. But yeah, well, actually, I think for some of the people that we had that work per diem, it kind of was a hobby. But that's
you had to watch them. You had to watch them after hours.
Yeah, that was tough job. That's surgery. For 8, 10, like the longest one was 14 hours. But I called BS on some basically illegal activities that they were doing, and then some things they were doing that were unsafe for the people I was supervising. So the manager came out from Seattle, that's the section head was from there, fired me, on the spot. No union. So that was my first clue that I needed a union. Went to work for the VA immediately after that, almost immediately after that, and quickly joined AFGE, the union for government workers. Mm-hmm. And that, man, if I had not been a part of them, because that was a cannibalistic work environment. I wasn't a nurse or a doctor, but I had the medical management, skills I had learned from 20 some years in, military medicine. Really, I was able to pay off. I was able to help vets out a lot, but anyone who wasn't a vet seemed like they thought that us vets that worked there were hired just because we were vets and we didn't deserve to be there. So there was always someone your same rank trying to come get rid of you. I don't know if you saw that in Secret Service at all or not, but I loved helping vets, but I hated that caustic, like I say, cannibalistic environment. I worked as long as I could there. Then I moved over to USCIS, for Homeland Security, but I was the record supervisor for the folks who did the immigration interviews and for actually all the border patrol stations across the top of Montana and even into Calgary and Edmonton. Edmonton, I had to go inspect them there. But when Trump came into office, he decided to furlough us all. Do you know that immigration, they don't get paid by taxpayers' money? They get paid by all the fees that immigrants pay. So we had, there was no funding issue with us. While Homeland Security was just like they're going through now, not getting paid for a bit, we were getting paid. So the fact that he furloughed us, again, that's back to creating a problem when there wasn't one, destroying the capabilities of a highly functional, cabinet position, and destroying, saying that, that immigration is broken. No, you broke it. You were furloughing all these people who were doing the work for asylum seekers, doing their interviews. You got rid of the folks who were investigating to see if folks were, actually had a bad background before they came to the country or not. And then all these people that were doing their interviews, you laid them off. And you telling people to come in legally the right way when you make the the door was this big and you made it this big, it was heinous. So I ran back to the VA and was working for them again. I loved, honestly, working for immigration when I did. But then I decided to switch careers, come back to Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like that, if I hadn't had that union in the VA, I would not have survived because, that it was caustic and I had to use them at times. I much better pay with, so I'm still a member of Jefferson County Teachers Association, which is a KEA, branch. And I really, really, if it wasn't for, JCTA, man, they really negotiate for real. They have real teeth when it comes to negotiation. We get paid better than any teachers anywhere else in Kentucky. It's, what do you think that you could see could you work with the KEA, with the NEA, and help also improve teachers' salaries and teachers' benefits in the nation? Because I think we should have a universal
if I don't, my
system.
wife will kill me. So, but yeah, no, we have. That's one of those things, man. So what I always tell people, we have to have a lot of money allocated to the defense budget to take care, of our veterans.
I guess we need what was it, 800 billion more we need also right now for this war? And
but that's the thing. But so much money, like the Pentagon can't account for, trillions of dollars over so many years. I propose that we get people in office who are willing to go on these committees and truly audit the federal government, make sure that this money is not thrown away, it's not wasted.
But not Doge, I hope.
Oh, hell no. Like competent people, people who actually know what they're doing, that are elected by people, like a senator, representatives, a committee from Congress. And, my background, Secret Service, they do protection. We also did financial crimes investigations. I'm used to looking at the books and finding when stuff's wrong. But the money is there to make substantial changes for the better without raising taxes. We just have to be better stewards of taxpayer money. And I think personally, our biggest expenditures from the federal government point of view should be education and healthcare. If you keep people healthy and then you educate them, they can do anything. That's all.
Yes.
That's what happened to me. I'm a living example of that. And that's what I say. And I think our federal government should step in and help out. Like, Kentucky is one of these states that we receive more from the federal government than we pay in. We're just one of those. We're always in the red. And the federal government should be willing and able to, through the Department of Education, to protect teachers' pensions, right? If there's
we're not actually always in the red. We're running in a surplus right now and putting.
But I'm talking about federal tax payments.
Yeah.
So we have a surplus in the state budget, but
which
the money
we should be using for more things than we, for
the
teachers,
money that all the workers in Kentucky pay in federal taxes. You take that in every single year that we give to the Treasury. We receive more in aid from the federal government, or more in allocations, than we ever pay in for federal taxes in Kentucky with everyone's income taxes combined. That's what I mean by that. Yeah, no, our state, they've done good. This administration in our state, our governor, with our budget. But I propose that our Department of Education, has safeguards in place in case pensions go belly up, which they should never go belly up, right? Something has gone wrong if teachers or any industry loses a pension, especially if it's one that's managed by a government. Like there's no excuse for that.
No.
And not just because I'm married to one, right? But because when I was growing up, a lot of the, first and most consistent moments of relief that I had from the harsh conditions of poverty were because my teachers cared about me. They would sneak me in food and, give me food when my classmates weren't looking because they didn't want me to feel bad about taking it. They would help buy my school supplies. Teachers change lives in so many ways. Yes. And that's why I married one. I like to say, but they're great, man. They are grossly underpaid. Even the best paid ones in the state or the country, grossly underpaid. It's a joke that you can't elect to pay into Social Security, in Kentucky with that. That has to be fixed. There's a lot of stuff for education and teachers in particular with their pay and benefits that we have to fix. Also, just funding for schools. There should be it's 2026, right? Like we are spending up to $2 billion a day right now on a war that no one voted for. right? It's an illegal war that our president entered in unilaterally, which is not allowed. But there's no money though if to send to a place in Kentucky to make sure that kids aren't going to a school that has mold in it, to make sure that kids aren't going to a place that isn't climate controlled, make sure kids don't have access to updated technology and resources, textbooks. Like the money's there to do the right things. We just choose to send people to Congress who want to put that money towards the bad things, right? And I'm not for that, man. I want to reshape how we spend our money. I want to make sure that everyone's taken care of, especially children and the most vulnerable. And we can do that. The money exists to do that, and the people who tell you it doesn't, they're lying to you. It's like the big beautiful bill, for instance, right? They cut all this funding for the safety net programs, and it's going to literally kill Kentuckians when this goes into effect. People are losing health insurance, they're losing food. It's going to
Well, it's already gone. I mean, people have gone from $150 a month to,
Oh, yeah.
well, I've heard, $800 a month.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse in December. That's
Healthcare.
the thing. That's
Yeah.
what's shocking about that.
Yeah.
But it's going to equate to the loss of life in Kentucky across the board. A lot of people are going to lose their life when they shouldn't.
Now, I don't know
And-
about you, but I'm also in the sandwich generation right now. So I'm taking care of a niece. I've got adult children, some of whom need Medicaid also.
Yeah.
But got my niece. I'm sandwiched between her and now my mom.
Yeah.
And then my other niece, who's an adult who didn't get any education, and I'm just sandwiched. I'm feeling
Just
that
needs help.
crunch.
Yeah, I know.
Well, if you don't have, if they can't get Medicaid, or
Yeah.
if they're going to have to, because my mom and other niece live in Eastern Kentucky, and if they lose those hospitals and have to drive all the way to Lexington, where you live, or even to Louisville, not far from, 45 minutes from me,
Mhm.
that's not going
Well,
to
I mean,
be
yeah,
something
losing
that
the-
I can afford to see them do, because
No.
they don't have transportation either.
No, and losing those hospitals, it's not just going to be 35 hospitals. We all have to acknowledge that. And it's not only going to be the hospitals in these areas that close. Most of the time in Kentucky, especially the rural parts, the two largest and best employers are the school systems and the
Hospitals.
that are
Yep.
there. So let's close
Yep.
down the hospital. Let's take half or more of the good jobs. Let's see how well even franchise, fast food places do. They're going to shut down. Mom and pop
Yep.
shops don't stand a chance.
Yep.
Even like Walmart's, we've seen it. Kmart went under, right? So they're not immune to this. It's going to decimate already struggling local economies beyond most people's comprehension, and I'm really worried
Absolutely.
about that. And
Can
then
I take
these
this a little
people-
break?
Absolutely, yeah.
And let's look at someone else who might not have to worry about any of this. See what you think. There's going to be a few people who it just seems like nothing can touch them or bother them per se. And I wonder if you think this is one of them. So Trump has to be the only billionaire born into wealth that has spent his entire life failing upward. I think we might have had another Republican president before him and did the same. Failing upward into being the most powerful person on earth, yet still finds a way to complain about something every day as if he's being dealt an unfair hand. All while his citizens can't afford to buy homes, have children, buy groceries, gas, and life, and then file for bankruptcy over medical bills. It's honestly astonishing. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. So this is what happens when we elect a billionaire to run our country. When you elect people who have never had to live the lives that we all live, they don't care because they can't care. There's no basis for them to form an understanding of what this truly means for everybody. So we send billionaires and ultra wealthy people to the White House and to Congress, and then we get policies that benefit billionaires and ultra wealthy at the expense of everyone else. Well, that's because they're the people making the freaking rules, and it's on both sides. We have very wealthy Democrats in office who have become even wealthier in office, and all that's wrong, man. It's a terrible, terrible system that we have. It all has to really, we had to get enough people in there that it looks like we've broken the whole system down and we're rebuilding it.
So I think I
Because-
asked you this last time I saw you, but of course we weren't live, right? So to me, like people talk about term limits, I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is not the problem. I think I don't like using corporations as an example because I hate people who think you should run the government like a corporation. They're not the
Cool.
same thing at all.
No, they have completely different.
But I'm still going to use that analogy, okay?
Yeah.
So my dad and I were talking about it. My dad was a lifelong Democrat, and he's like, I'm like, Dad, well, I think we should have term limits. He's like, son, businesses don't kick out their CEO every 8 years or 10 years if he's doing a great job. If they're not, they kick him out right away. But that's just my example. But I think Citizens United is the whole problem. I think we're gone back to like the era of Teddy Roosevelt, when you had the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Milligans, the robber barons, absolutely corruption, running our country, deciding who was elected, putting them in front of us and giving us no other choice. I think that's what we've got with Citizens United. I believe McCain and who co-sponsored that? Do you remember with McCain?
No,
The Democrat? I'm trying to remember.
I would have to go back and look. Yeah.
But I mean, we got to go back to what they gave us. They tried to get rid of this. They tried to break it down. And McCain was he was a real Republican back in the days, in my opinion, regardless of what, being called a rhino by this president. But I think he actually had a heart, even though I don't agree with him on other things.
He was the holdout, right?
He
was the holdout for killing the ACA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
he was the holdout vote for that because he just couldn't do it. He knew that it would cause people to die.
But we got to have more people willing to trash Citizens United, because that you get into office, it's all about, you've got to immediately start campaigning. You have to have someone raising money the whole time, and if you had a wage that was commensurate with someone of that level of hopefully expertise, maybe we need to pay them more in Congress so that they don't do insider trading. And so that it's not, about, hey, I've got a lobbyist paying me off and I've got insider trading. No, it should be, I believe if you were just there for service to humanity, because that's the biggest honor.
Well, that's the thing. I hate to jump in here.
Yeah, no,
if we elect the people like that, like what you're saying, the people who are truly there to make the world better, to represent their constituents, the ones who voted for them, the ones who didn't, they just want to make the life better from where they're from. If that's their main focus, then I would say if you were to make a Venn diagram of those people and then the people who commit insider trading and just try to get really wealthy, those circles aren't going to touch, right? I think that's a self-solving problem. We unfortunately are sending people to Congress and the White House who are super greedy. Like I haven't met many. I did meet some because I was in the Secret Service when Trump was in office. But the billionaires that I met, none of them ever said, "Oh no, thank you, I've had enough." Right, and a chance to make more money. So if we still elect like really bad people to Congress, but we pay them more, hopefully enough, that would deter a normal person from doing insider trading. If we send the wrong people there, they're still going to do it. They're just like the other greedy people. Like, they have a lot, but they want more and more and more. And we have to get those people far away from public office. Yes. Citizens United, man, it's been litigated all the way to the Supreme Court. They upheld it. And there's other ways we can do other, regulations, laws, and to try to circumvent it. But they're always going to have this precedent, this fallback to say, hey, the Supreme Court upheld this. This is legal. The one true way to really overcome it is going to be a constitutional amendment. It can happen. It's a lofty, hard thing to do. I'll fight for that. But at the same time, I will fight for other ways as well. So for my platform is I want to do campaign finance and campaign reform. It's awful that I had to announce my candidacy last September to hopefully become viable by the time as someone who's never run before. That's ridiculous. I think worst case scenario, elections, no matter what office, should be 6 months in length. You have 3 months leading up to a primary. Then you have 3 months immediately following to the general. And that should be the only time that people get a campaign or do anything. I also think that you should be limited to where your money comes from. It should only come from individual donors. I think that wherever you're running,
but for that to happen,
Yep.
That
Got to get
for
rid of
me to
citizen
know,
donor.
are you actually an individual donor? I should be able to pour a bourbon and hand it to you.
Oh,
And
for
share
sure.
a bourbon with you. If I can't
Yep.
share a bourbon with you, you're not an individual. So corporations are
Mhm.
not
No, they're not people.
They're
Here's
not
the thing.
individuals like we were told by the Supreme Court. I can't have
No,
a
so
bourbon with a corporation.
so how I know they're not people is they only get the benefits of being a person, but they don't get any of the negatives, right? They don't go to prison when they break the law. They aren't held
The
accountable.
Epstein class.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not people because you and I do something bad, we're going to prison. We're people, right? We get the benefits of being a person, but we also get the negatives when those are called for. But I think me, for instance, I'm running for U.S. Senate, so my district is the whole state of Kentucky. So I think that there should be a maximum amount that I can raise, and it should be based on the total number of potential voters for you in your primary at first, and then in the general, and that should be equal to the individual max contribution times that number. And you can't get any more than that. Then you're done. Also, I think because not everyone will donate, right? You're going to get money from outside of your district, but I think that should be limited to 10% of that potential max amount. Like 90% of your money has to come from individuals in the district you're seeking to represent under my plan. That way, that's who you're held to account to. You're not getting most of your money like some people running for this seat, even on our side. They leave the state, they go up to the Hamptons, they come back with millions of dollars. Well, those people in the Hamptons have no connection to Kentucky, but they now have a connection to this person running for the seat, and they have expectations. Like, it's not charity. They're not just giving you money and saying, hey, we believe in you, go do your thing. We don't care how you do it. No, if someone cuts you a check for millions of dollars, they want something in return.
They definitely want something.
And
Now,
we got to
I
stop
will have
that.
to say one thing because my dad and I he's passed away now, like I told you, but
Mhm.
we had conversations like this, and I know that you say that you won't take money from outside the state, right? I'm
Well, no, so
worried.
I get some individual donors from outside the state. Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I'll never take special interest money, corporate money. Everything that I get is individuals, and that's
Yep.
good. And then I want to change it to where, let's say I win this one and I run for reelection one time. I won't. I want to limit myself to
Yeah.
that 10% number from outside the state because all my support, all the people who are helping get me there, I want it to be people in Kentucky. I want it to be people who can find me when I'm in Kentucky, who have access to me, to talk to me, to tell me when I'm doing good, tell me when I'm doing bad, especially correct my behavior. I want those to be the only people that I have a responsibility to when I go to DC.
And I totally agree with you. I just hope you don't handicap yourself.
Yeah.
Set yourself back so you can't win. I mean, I'm glad you're not taking APAC money, but
Oh, for sure.
if say a big rock star wants to donate to you, from out of state, hopefully you would take it and win.
Yeah.
So now let's take one other thought here. I think that you'll appreciate this one. And again, these are all coming from Oath Nation, that where I got the T-shirt from.
Mhm.
But this is again kind of a back to our point. I'm really proud to have served in the military and have been able to serve my nation, and I hope to keep being able to serve by being a magistrate. But what do you think about this? America's infrastructure is falling apart, and you cannot afford to buy a home. But we're going to spend another, few $100 billion in the Middle East. What can we do to make sure we end these crazy wars? Are you going to get in there and fight to bring us back to where it's Congress, like the Constitution said, that determines when we go to war?
Yeah, and this is, again, I said earlier that I will never be like a straight supporter of our party when we do things wrong, and we're doing this wrong. We've been handling this whole second term of Trump wrong from day one. Our party will allow him or his cabinet or any other number of people who aren't actually cabinet members, but for some reason have wild control and authority. They allow them to do illegal acts, or they perform illegal acts. This war is an illegal war. The president can't unilaterally do this. We all know this. We've all been talking about it. But who in our party has filed articles of impeachment? No one. And yeah, and I've talked to some people who were currently in Congress and some in leadership. And this, even before the Iran thing, this was going back to like an immigration discussion that I was having with them. And I was like, why are you all not impeaching like Christine Ohm when she goes on TV and calls people domestic terrorists without any evidence of that? That's just clearly a lie. And she's using it to stoke, incite violence and like, it's a hateful rhetoric with the sole intent of dividing us and causing more harm. That's all it was. And it's illegal what she's doing. You can't, your words are not protected under certain circumstances. And, inciting violence like that is not protected. That's literally a crime. But she's also just wrong. And we can't stand for something like that. So when I talked to them, I was like, where's the articles of impeachment? Oh, we don't have the votes. We can't do it. Well, we didn't send you there to not do your job. Yeah, you might not have the votes. Still try. Show the people that you're willing to try and then keep trying when it fails.
But again,
Eventually,
they have no balls. They have no cojones.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I don't want to do anything that might keep me from getting the votes of MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
If I want MAGA to vote for me the next election, well, dude, really? Is there going to be a next election if you do that? That's the thing that
exactly.
That scares the crap out of me. And another question I have, which is related: should a president's 19-year-old son be able to take $30 million, invest in petroleum a few days before his dad declares war?
I think we all know the answer is no, right?
So
it's so funny because
what can you do? Because we don't have any guardrails. All the guardrails we thought were there to prevent an executive from becoming the king of our nation. They don't exist apparently.
I know, and we have to build them up. We have to do a lot of stuff.
Reinforcement of them. What can we do to make sure that we don't have a grifter in chief again?
Well, again, when we go in and we remove everyone from office, usually through a new vote. If we have to impeach the people, if we get enough people in Congress, we can start impeaching people. That's a positive thing, and we can send a warning to people that this isn't going to happen again. Once we get more people in Congress, we establish new regulations, new laws that prevent all this from happening. We start taking what is insider trading, not only for Congress, but for members of the president's family. We take that seriously. We actually investigate it. That results in prison time for whoever does it. Not just a slap on the wrist, not just a fine. You go to prison.
Because Hunter Biden, right?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That they made such a big deal about the job that he had with them or sitting on the board, right? And then Barron gets to do this. Like, what are you talking? It's all hypocrisy.
No one gives a crap, right?
No.
All Hunter Biden, and
it's all
$30 million as a 19-year-old. He needs to be in the front lines. He needs to be in uniform. He needs to be serving. He doesn't need to go to college. He doesn't need to finish college.
No,
he's got more money than you and I are making. We're college grads. That's what's killing me. Now, I got one more question for you because I know that I'm killing your precious time. But let's look at one more thing here, okay? Before I let you go.
And I apologize. I'm long-winded, so I would love to come back another time too, man. We can continue the conversation.
Oh gosh, please! I would love if you did. I'm so proud of living in a democracy and a republic. And when I finally got to reunite with my biological dad, he was living in Lexington, Kentucky. I went out the window one night in Texas, took my last beating from my stepdad, and my mother's parents helped me escape back up here and reunite with my dad. So he registered me. It took me down. I was 17 before that when I visited him before I escaped. And he made sure right before my 18th birthday that he took me to register to vote. I was in Lexington. And I thought I was a Republican at the time because I've been living with the Christian right, Yeah. And I was about to write that down. This was 1989. He's like, oh, no, son. He's like, this family pulls for the rooster. He goes, also, there's no primary for Republicans in this state. So you're going to register as a Democrat. So, of course I did and have been ever since. But talking about voting, all right, what's your position going to be on this voting deal that they've got in Congress? Come right, what do you think of it?
The SAVE Act?
The SAVE Act, yeah. Let me bring something up here real quick, but Give me a quick lowdown before I bring it up. What do you think of the SAFE Act?
I mean, we got to oppose it. It's, it's wanting to take away a right exclusively reserved to the states and bring it under federal control. Again, this is the party that wants a smaller federal government and wants more power to the states, but they're doing everything they can, including sending, agents and military into cities that aren't requesting help. Now they're trying to take elections and voting away from them. So just from a constitutional point of view, it's unconstitutional. In Kentucky, you already have to have an ID. You already have to prove who you are to register and then to show up and vote.
It's already hard as heck as it is.
This is clearly just a way to disenfranchise people, to separate a large group of people from their most fundamental right that you have as an American, which is the right to vote, which is your voice in our democracy. It was set up that way because our founding fathers came from a place that didn't have that. And they realized how important that was. And it's something enshrined by law. Unfortunately, the first day, a lot of people didn't have that right. And we fought hard and long battles and fights internally in this country, almost ripping our country in half, to ensure that we've expanded fairness and equality and the right to vote to more groups and to make sure that everyone has it. This is the first step in trying to remove all that. And
let's look at a little piece of irony here and tell me what you think about it, okay?
To vote? Hello, I'm Republicans in Congress. Starting in December, every American male between 18 and 25 will be automatically registered for the draft. Hello, I'm a draft eligible man. Do you need my birth certificate? No, we already know who you are. So you need my passport? No, how many 18-year-olds have passports? So I don't need a birth certificate or a passport for you to register me for war. But if the SAVE Act passes, I need at least one of those to register to vote? Hello, I'm Republican.
See, the problem with that is you're asking them to be reasonable and to use common sense and to justify what they're doing and the hypocrisy of everything they do. They're never going to be able to. They won't even address that. You can bring it up to them and not an issue because they're going to turn a blind eye to it.
How much of this talk of the draft do you think is serious?
I mean,
honestly, I think that's the quickest way to end this war is to start drafting again. Because I'm going to scream for Barron Trump to be there, Donald Trump to be there, Eric, Ivanka, every single senator and congressman's, son and daughter. That if they didn't decide to do their constitutional duty and to making sure they're the only ones to declare war, then I think they need to get all their kids in uniform.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in order for that to happen, we have to have different people in office because right now it's rules and law for thee, but not for me. These people who are making them, and our party's just as guilty, man. They're benefiting from a lot of this stuff, and it's sickening. It's gross. It's what's given rise to all of our issues, and we need to get better people in, man. And I'll support everything you're saying. If we vote to go to war, then those who cast the vote, you better have a personal stake in it. It better be something that makes you truly think about what you're doing. You can't just have a blind yes to go to war.
I totally agree. As someone who's my dad and brother were killed by the wars they fought. Even though they didn't kill them on the battleground right away, almost killed my brother. Didn't. Dad died of an Agent Orange. Brother, 22 a day. My other brother in Texas, I'm checking on him all the time, making sure he's okay because he was there with the one. Now, last thing, this one is a tough question. If it's too scary, you don't have to answer it. I don't know if I should be asking it, here, but let's just back up a bit. Like I say, I went to work for immigration for a bit, right? Looked at all the immigration records. I was also in charge of ICE records. So even though I right now, am very proud of the No Eyes T-shirt. When I used to go have to inspect ICE records also. So I got to meet some of these agents. Actually met one. She had worked. You might have even known her. I wish I could remember her name. She worked for Secret Service for quite a few years. She and her husband did. Her husband's still with Secret Service. She moved over to ICE. They met while being Secret Service in charge of taking care of President Carter.
Okay.
So they got to tell me, you've told me how, awesome Obama is and
Yeah,
and his
Carter is
wife.
good.
Oh my God, they told me just that he's
Mhm.
truly a spiritual,
Yes.
amazing, wonderful human being. Her
He
husband
he
still had
treated
permission anytime he wanted to go hunt on the
yeah.
farm in Georgia. So no, so I've got, I've saw good ice and bad ice, while I was working there. I saw the folks who really getting rid of the criminals. And I knew,
Mhm.
in Billings, I went to invest, look at the records of, and one of the agents was telling me that they told him to go do undercover work at, there's this Catholic church in Billings on the wrong side of the tracks, the poor side, that it was a Hispanic, Catholic church.
Mhm.
So every year they did a fundraiser in September, and had, like a car show, arts and crafts, fun time. But he was told to go do surveillance work there, and he's like, no, I am not going to go surveil people in their, spiritual place of worship and, activity. We know now you can. I know he had an office worker who didn't feel that way because he had a whole shrine to Trump, in the office. But
Mhm.
okay, so I also have a family member. It was American citizen, but he's brown. He was given a beat down in San Diego by ICE, and his worker that was in the truck with him, because he has his own business in the construction industry. I won't say what because I don't want to go looking for him.
Mhm.
But his employee has been disappeared. That from that same instant that my son-in-law got a beat down. So am I completely anti-ICE after seeing, the good and the bad? Well, it used to be when I worked for Homeland Security. Something's got to be done. And if we have to
Mhm.
scrap it and start over again, I want to know what's your opinion.
Yeah.
Because, here is, we've had the 13th person now has been killed by ICE, and it's a youngster, a
Mhm.
19-year-old dies in ICE custody, marking the 13th death this year.
Yeah.
So
It's awful. Yeah, we
what are we
unfortunately
doing?
yeah, at the point we're at the point, man, we have to scrap it and start over. The immigration and custom enforcements that they do when they were only tasked with that, when they weren't being brought into cities to do this. That's important work. We have to have that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
we can't. So for every good agent and officer that you knew, back in the
Yeah,
day,
that's
they have
exactly.
been bombarded with hundreds of these poorly trained people who swear an oath to a person, not the Constitution, not the badge,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And they've been flooded with bad actors to the point that I don't think you can salvage the existing agency. My stance on this is we abolish them. Their duties and responsibilities moves over to their sister agency under Homeland Security, which is HSI, Homeland Security Investigations.
Yeah,
They have solid special agents
yeah, I know.
who,
I
yeah, they
worked with them.
investigate trafficking, sex trafficking, crimes against
Yep,
children. They
yep.
do some of the worst and hardest investigations. They do it well. Very rarely will you see any kind of allegation against HSI agents. Do it like
Yes.
they
No,
take
I
some
agree.
of the best,
Yep.
some of the best with them.
I work with them and
And
know some still.
yeah, so I think we move it to there. We give them like a subsection of HSI. They still go through the same training so that they can bounce between other HSI duties if they want, and then do ICE for a while or the ICE functions. But we give it to a group that we can trust. We oversee it a lot better. We put up the safeguards again to where they can never be mobilized or expanded rapidly by one person. This was not an act of Congress. I mean, they got more funding by Congress eventually, but initially they didn't. And we had to do everything in our power to ensure that this doesn't happen again because we have so many truly untrained people hiding behind an ICE badge and a mask. And that's why 13 people have died this year. The Secret Service, when I was in, we dealt with more threats in serious situations than people know about because a big thing with the Secret Service is you don't want people to know how close sometimes people get because it's a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. You want the illusion that you're perfect and you don't fail. But we had a lot of situations, man, where even me, I could have pulled the trigger and I didn't do it. We were trained in different ways. Our training was brutal. It was intense. I was confident in my abilities to, take somebody down, even if they had a weapon, without killing them, without them losing their life. Because a
Man,
lot of times,
I'm a combat vet, and so
yeah,
you're kind of preaching to the choir because
well, yeah,
even
because
in the
with us, a lot of the
military, I was
times,
trained, not
yeah,
to know when to, have
hmm,
restraint.
exactly, and that's
One of my,
necessary.
yeah. It's just I don't understand that. I never ran around with a mask on my face, and I was taking care of, taking out real terrorists, or
Yeah,
our teams were charged with that.
hmm,
Yeah, I didn't. We never ran around with masks all over our face,
no,
you
and
know.
we didn't either, and
And
we were trained in
this
a
whole
way that,
excuse, oh, they're going to come after me and my family. Oh, really? Then
hmm,
maybe you are a pussy and in the wrong job. I
exactly,
mean, that's it. Just
exactly.
you know, uh, we
Well,
need people
like
with.
with us, our training and what how they should train other people with the Secret Service, you are almost always being recorded or televised, right? Like there's always a camera on these protectees. So a big part of it is, you're taught ways to minimize threats, reduce them, bring people down in ways that most people don't even notice. Like I had to secure an individual in the middle of a rally one time in an election year, and we were in the middle, and I got someone down, cuffed, and carried him out, and maybe two people noticed, and I was in a crowd of hundreds of people. Like that's just how we did things.
What year was
Um,
that?
oh goodness, that was unfortunately the midterm of Trump's first term, so that was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah,
And when were you
and
injured again? You said earlier, but
oh yeah, so my accident that I had, it was Christmas Eve 2022.
okay.
So, and then I officially ended federal service in March of 2023. That's when they realized the feeling wasn't coming back, and if you can't fill the gun, they don't want you to hold the gun, which I agree with. I'm not
Yeah,
no fault
yeah,
on them on that one. I completely
yep.
agree with. But yeah, agents have to be trained better, and unfortunately, like I said, with ICE, too many poorly trained agents who are in it for the wrong reasons. I think it's a calling to go into law
Yeah,
enforcement, to go into teaching,
yeah,
to go into medicine. Some of these things are a
yes,
calling,
yes.
and essentially, when people jump at the a $20,000 signing bonus, and
It was
and that's
higher
the
than
only
that,
reason they did it.
supposedly.
Yes,
Yeah,
like 50, I
yeah,
think it was the highest. But
yeah,
that's you get the wrong people in there, and there's
yeah.
too many wrong people. We got to get rid of them all.
Well, when they're being paid more than teachers,
Insane.
I've
Yeah,
got a master's degree, and they're making more than me.
yeah,
Again, that's back to I think teachers need to have we need to have a national um, requirement for teachers to have high education but be treated as
yeah.
people with a high education, just like Finland does, South Korea does, Japan does,
Hmm,
all these countries that are beyond us, and
hmm.
the education of their population.
And that comment that just came in, yes, I agree. Anybody who commits a crime, I don't care if you have a badge, especially one that results in the loss of life of an innocent person, exercising their First Amendment rights of speech at a protest. Yeah, I mean, they should already be in
And a
custody
nurse like your
awaiting.
sister,
Yeah, I
at
know. It's
that,
just
yeah,
absolutely insane.
the
The people who are arguing against prosecuting these people are a joke, and they're not American. And they claim to be patriots. It's the most unpatriotic thing you can do. Celebrate the death of a citizen exercising their rights.
yeah, amen. Well, any last thoughts here, because I'm delighted to be able to talk to you. I really enjoyed hearing you when you're here in Elizabethtown. Um,
Thank you.
what do you
Yeah,
what's your last tie up here? What do you think?
yeah. I just I'm accessible. So if anyone has any questions, there's ways to get a hold of me. Go on my Facebook, especially in my socials. Send me a message if you want a phone call. Just tell me, man. Give me your number. I'll give you a call. A lot of people are shocked by that, but yeah, I want to do this in a way that is so starkly different than any other senator we've ever had. But at the end of the day, I would want people to look back at this, after I win and after I've been in this. At first, they'll be shocked, I think, at how how I'm going to approach this, how I'm going to be available for everybody, how I'm going to rely on people and reach out to people and make sure everyone's as involved as they can be when I'm in office. And hopefully in even 10 years time, we'll look back and be like, oh, that's how we do it now. That's just the standard. And it's going to take us starting it to get there. And that's who I want to be.
Amen. Well, it's Lent, and every Lent I try to make sure that I give up alcohol just to make sure that I can, because bourbon's my favorite thing. I would lift a glass to you without ice.
It's a little messy, but there's
there we go. Well, I lift one without ice.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah, I won't be practicing Lent tonight, probably.
But so here in Kentucky, united we stand and divided we fall. And the only way we stay undivided is if we love our neighbor as ourselves. And if we recognize that we are our brother's keeper, we are our sister's keeper. And that's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
So I say, bless your corazon. That's Spanish for heart. I saw that at a great Mexican breakfast place in Louisville. Bless your corazon. And y'all remember everyone deployed overseas right now, and have a great weekend.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And hopefully, thanks for, saying you'll do it again.